MLW, Major League Wrestling. I mean, it's a great time to be a pro wrestling fan these days. And one of the reasons is because of MLW. Some outstanding talent, outstanding leadership, the storylines, the psychology, the angles. Just something you got to check out. And you can do that on beIN Sports. And who better right now to talk a little MLW than the Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Saint Laurent. Thank you so much for the time. Tell us a little bit about MLW, also about beIN Sports and the connection there.
Jim, great to talk with you, man. You and I go way back, which maybe we can dig into later. But yeah, MLW, our weekly program Fusion, is on beIN Sports every Saturday night at 9 o'clock. If you don't get beIN Sports, you can catch a replay on our YouTube, which is youtube.com/Major League Wrestling. Every episode is up there for free. If people are not checking out MLW, there's no excuse. You can't watch it on TV. You can watch it on YouTube. And, you know, we try to be a little bit of everything. We certainly want to try to present the sport in a serious manner. I think we have a nice mix of talent on our roster. And, you know, the formula, if you look at our roster, it's, you know, like I mentioned, a little bit of everything, but we certainly have an emphasis on Lucha Libre. We have a lot of great Mexican and Mexican-American fans. We just had an event in Mexico a couple weeks ago, sold out, 5,000 people. It was a huge success, our first trip down to Mexico. I've got some MMA influence on the card. You know, we've had UFC's Tom Lawler with us since the beginning. We've had other former MMA fighters come into the company as well. We got great mat technicians, guys like Timothy Thatcher. We have medal-winning jiu-jitsu practitioners like Dominic Guarini. You know, it's a great mix. But then also, if you grew up as a wrestling fan back in the day, and you're looking to see the next generation, we've got the next generation of the Hart Foundation with Teddy Hart and Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Brian Pillman Jr. We've got the next generation of the Von Erich with Marshall and Ross Von Erich that recently had their father, Kevin Von Erich, in the corner for the big War Chamber match. So we try to give you everything: old school, brawling, mat wrestling, international flavor. If you can't find something that you like in MLW, you just might not like pro wrestling.
Well, Mr. Saint Laurent, it's interesting, too, because it's almost like taking new school wrestling, but also mixing in some of the old school as well, especially with the psychology, the storylines, the angles. Is that part of the genius behind MLW?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's obviously going to be influenced by what they grew up on. And for me, when I was a kid, growing up in the 80s, if I was a 5-year-old kid in 1988, I loved Hulk Hogan, but I loved Mike Tyson just as much. And to me, there was really no difference between the two when I would watch boxing or if I would watch wrestling. And, you know, a few years later when the UFC cropped up in the early 90s, I was watching all that stuff too. And to me, it was just watching people get punched in the face and then talk about who was going to be the best one at beating up the other one the next month. And, you know, I really never saw the lines in the sand the way some people have approached different elements of combat sports. So at MLW, you know, we have the branding of Fusion for our show, and it's not just a fusion of wrestling styles, but I think it's a fusion of fighting styles. And how can we bring pro wrestling back to the day where it wasn't just for all ages, but, you know, most sports should be for all ages. That doesn't mean that it's just specifically catered to kids. It doesn't have to be a cartoon. Pro wrestling should be serious. This is about people that have issues with each other, and they're going to settle those issues by throwing each other into the mat or tables or crashing off the top rope and all those kinds of things. This is really a superhuman combat is what takes place in wrestling when wrestling's at its best. So that's what we try to focus on.
And with that focus, MLW continues to gain ground. And to me, one of the things that's interesting in the sport today, it's not new because boxers have been involved in pro wrestling, football players, but today we're seeing a lot of crossover. You mentioned some of the MMA stars that are involved with MLW, or MMA talent is involved with MLW. And MMA stars are involved in a lot of pro wrestling today. What do you think the appeal is with that MMA influence?
Well, I think for a long time, I don't want to criticize any other groups, but for a long time, I think wrestling kind of lost its way of what makes the fans want to buy a ticket, which is there's a fight they want to see. And so it's not a question of influence of MMA or influence from boxing. Wrestling is the original sport. You can go back to the origins of our species, and we've been wrestling since the very beginning. The sport of kings for a reason. It's the original sport for a reason. So really everybody else was just continuing to incorporate elements that we as a sport lost. So I don't feel like we're taking from anyone else. We're just bringing back the things we should have never gotten rid of.
And the thing, it really has grown over the years. And it's amazing too, the talent level and the skill level. What have you seen with the talent today and the skill level that they have?
Well, I talk all the time, I started wrestling in the late 90s, and for people that don't know, the first work I ever did in wrestling, period, was over 20 years ago for you, when you let me write on for the Miami Herald and do results and stuff for you. And I give full credit to you, Jim Barcelona, for getting my foot in the door in wrestling, period. But when I started wrestling, the guys could not do what these kids can do today. I mean, just the athleticism is incredible. And I think that's one of the things that not only makes wrestling so exciting, but makes wrestling the sport that the fans are the most obsessed with. Any other sport, the fans of that sport are not nearly as passionate as wrestling fans are. And I mentioned superhuman combat before. We really are the sport that pushes the limits athletically of what a human can do. And we need to shine a light on that and be proud of that and treat wrestling as a sport that deserves respect. You look at MLW, we have the pay-per-view coming up, Saturday Night SuperFight on November 2nd, and it's LA Park, the biggest badass in the history of Mexico, and it's Jacob Fatu, the world heavyweight champion, who's trying to prove that he's the biggest badass that ever lived. And the things that they're going to do to each other on November 2nd, the war that they're going to wage against each other, is something that everybody needs to see. And I think it's something that's going to be more exciting and more brutal than you could have in any, you could have them compete with Taekwondo, or you could have them compete amateur wrestling, but you put them in pro wrestling where there's no limits and just let them do what they do. To me, that's more exciting and more impressive than you're going to find in any other sport.
And how exciting of a time is it having this November 2nd event, this pay-per-view?
I mean, the pay-per-view, for us as a company, like I try to do MLW. We scour the world, we scour the country, trying to find the best talent that we can, and we want to bring it to the people. And we want to bring it to the people at a price they can afford. The pay-per-view is only $19.95, and you can get that pay-per-view pretty much any imaginable way that you can think of. Traditional cable, dish, direct TV, Fight TV on your Roku or your gaming console. We're trying to bring great fights at a great price to as many people as we possibly can. And, this is the big coming out party for MLW, because the last 2 years, we've been the best kept secret in pro wrestling, and you can see it with the fans, with the way they are on social media, the way they are in the YouTube comments, spreading the word about this product. We do not have some big billionaire financing this thing. This is pro wrestling at its purest, for the fans that have the most respect for the sport, and for people that have wanted to see some of these big matches that we have November 2nd, Fatu and Park for the world heavyweight title, Austin Aries and Teddy Hart for the world middleweight title. These are fights that are going to be can't miss.
Those are 4 outstanding names that you mentioned, and that's just a part of the MLW roster. I got to see Jacob Fatu because he has worked in South Florida, a couple of Gangrel Wrestling Asylum shows, and obviously seeing him on MLW and the history from his family. What an incredible talent. The company has done a great job, I think, in having a champion that is someone like a Jacob Fatu. What things do you see? What does Jacob Fatu bring to the table to MLW?
Well, Jacob Fatu, you talk about the legacy of Samoan heritage in pro wrestling and all the incredible athletes that have come through the sport over the decades, the Wild Samoans, The Rock, you can go on and on and on. To me, Fatu is not just the most talented of any of them, not just the most ferocious, not just the most fierce. The things that he can do athletically at his size, sometimes I'll be sitting there, it's difficult to believe that it's real. That a man of that size can have that kind of grace and that kind of balance, but also that kind of power, that kind of speed. I mean, he's got it all. And, you know, if you look at the major companies in pro wrestling, if you look at the people that are calling themselves world heavyweight champions, I don't know about you, when I was a kid, you want to be the champion of the world. Until there's fights taking place on Mars, I'm not really concerned about the champion of the universe. In terms of the guys that are calling themselves the champion of the world, give me Fatu over any of them. In an alleyway, in a bar, in a wrestling ring, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is the kind of guy that's not afraid to cripple you. This is the kind of guy that seemingly is indestructible. And when we looked at our roster, you know, the dream fight, of course, would be with LA Park. You know, I was down in Tijuana a couple weeks ago, and you see the way that this man down there is just treated as an absolute god. And when he won the Battle Riot earlier in the year, which gives him the right to pick where he wants his championship match, you know, I'm not surprised that he picked Chicago, because every time we're in Chicago, happens to be a part of town that's very heavy on Mexican Americans. Honestly, like, maybe 80% of the audience is Mexican. You know, there's going to be 2,000 people there, sold out as always. And the atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric. And it really is the Mexican heritage versus the Samoan heritage. You know, there's a lot on the line there, not just in terms of the championship, but in terms of the respect in wrestling. Sometimes people wonder, you know, who produces the top talent? The Samoans are very proud of their legacy in wrestling and everything that they've done. Fatu's carrying that banner, and it's looking like he's going to go down as the best of them all.
In baseball, they call a great player a five-tool player. I think we can call Fatu a six-tool player in professional wrestling.
Yeah, there's nothing he doesn't have.
And then some, as you described. It's amazing. Okay, so MLW, how did you get involved with MLW? Court Bauer, the mastermind behind MLW. How does MSL, Mr. Saint Laurent, get his foot in the door with MLW?
So, like you know, I grew up in Miami, and I was a young kid trying to break into the independent circuit down there. And, you know, I trained at Duke the Dumpster Droese school back in '99, and just started working some different indies down there as a manager. And of course, was submitting my columns and results to you for the Herald website and all that kind of stuff, but really hadn't gotten any sort of big break yet. You know, I was 15, 16, just working my way up the ranks. And, you know, a few years in, MLW, the first incarnation, had run a couple shows, and they announced that they were coming to Fort Lauderdale. So, you know, I just hit them up and said, hey, you know, wrestler in the area, promoted some of my own shows, you know, if you need any help, I'm happy to help with anything you need. And they hit me back, and you know, I really just started at the bottom, flyering, postering, building the ring, you know, coordinating different things on the ground because I was the one that happened to live in the area. You know, never imagining that all these years later, after MLW shut down and Court, the founder, went to go work for WWE, and, you know, I didn't think back then as a teenager that MLW would come back all these years later and be on national and international TV every week in all these different countries, and then I'd be running the company with Court. So it's been a wild ride. It really has, but all the success has been down to one thing. It's listening to the fans and it's finding the best talent before anybody else finds them. That's what MLW lives and dies on. You know, and I know there's other groups out there that try to push that they're the next generation. But you look at the MLW roster, we have the most balanced roster, we have the best talent of whatever it is that you're into. You know, some guys like blood and guts, and we've got the most dangerous, the most scary blood and guts kind of risk takers you could ever see. If you're in high flying, the things that our luchadors can do, the things that Teddy Hart can do, the things that the members of Injustice can do are off the charts. Just the gravity-defying wrestlers that we have. If you're looking for guys that are just going to punch you in the face, the big super heavyweights that are going to break your body down, Alexander Hammerstone, Davey Boy Smith Jr., LA Park, Fatu, the list goes on and on. I put our roster up against anybody.
It is an incredible roster. I would do the same. Just the talent there is amazing. And it says something about the state of wrestling today because there is a lot of standouts around the world. I want, though, to get back to when you started because obviously with the internet and social media, a lot has changed. Do you think it's easier for somebody that wants to work behind the scenes to get involved in pro wrestling today, or do you think it's the same?
Well, when I came in, the way wrestling looked when I was 15 was very different from the way wrestling looked by the time I was 17. So when I came in, you had WWE was going strong, and WCW was going strong, and ECW was going strong, and whether my future was going to be in the ring or as a commentator or behind the scenes or wherever the sport has taken me over the years, there were some opportunities there. And then before you know it, WCW is gone, ECW is gone, and it's like, oh shoot, what am I going to do? I knew that I didn't have the body or the kind of things that WWE looked for. I knew that was not my strength. I always knew.
But you had a great look, though.
I appreciate that, and I think what I brought to the table as a wrestler back in the day, I tried to do parts of the sport that I had worked for many years, but had kind of been lost or overlooked. Throughout wrestling history, how many great big men did you have that came out and, maybe they weren't the most muscular gentlemen that you'd ever seen in your life, but even with their girth, they could move around and do some damage and get the crowd riled up and all that kind of stuff. And I love that. And that's a chapter of my life that I'll always cherish. But I knew my greatest chance of success was going to be either behind the scenes in the locker room or in the commentary booth. And I got into wrestling knowing that was probably my future, but like I mentioned, WCW and ECW go under, and it's like, oh, well, what am I going to do? And, a lot of it involved either running my own events or getting linked up with just as many companies as I could to keep myself busy. There was a point in time where I was doing commentary on local TV in Orlando and in Japan and in Puerto Rico and Ring of Honor and all these groups at the very same time, often under several different names so that nobody figured out that I was working for all these competing companies. And that's just a tough way to live. I mean, one of the things I love the most about MLW is getting to put all my passion for wrestling into one company. Yeah, it's hard when it's something you care about so deeply and it's your life's work to have to spread that across 20 different companies at one time. So, for me, it's a dream come true to just devote myself 24/7 to one league and try to make that league as great as I can.
Well, you've got the big pay-per-view coming up, MLW, November 2nd. And then you have a special event on November 9th. And this will be an MLW returning to Gilt Night Club in Orlando. And tell us a little bit about this homecoming, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that's really exciting for me, too. I live in Winter Park, which is just minutes from Orlando. And Gilt Night Club, yeah, the show is November 9th. Special 4 p.m. bell time, Saturday afternoon. So you can still go out Saturday night and do whatever you want to do. And when MLW first came back a couple years ago, all of the events were in Orlando at Gilt Night Club. Honestly, mainly because it was 10 minutes down the road for me, and that was just the area I was familiar with. And then we got the TV deal, and we started moving to larger venues, and you can really only fit a few hundred fans in there. And we're fortunate at this point that we have the demand that, we go to New York or Dallas or Chicago or Philly and there's 1,000, 2,000 fans there. So it's tough. It's tough to run a small building now like that. But those fans were so loyal. We would have never been able to do any of this without them. And it was very important, I think, to all of us to get back to Gilt at some point. And so when the opportunity pops up, we've got the pay-per-view November 2nd. We needed to add a taping because, what we're doing November 2nd for that pay-per-view, that's not going to be seen in the following weeks on beIN. Normally we run an event and then you watch beIN the next 3-4 weeks and you see what happened. So when we had to add a show, that was the chance finally to go back to Orlando. And so I know the fans there are excited. The first day ticket sales and tickets went on sale. Was probably one of our most successful first day sales we've ever had. The enthusiasm here is great. We only have a couple matches announced right now because obviously the focus has been on the pay-per-view. But still, I mean, even just so far, Filthy Tom Lawler versus Davey Boy Smith Jr., and Timothy Thatcher versus Low Key. I mean, those are two huge matches that the fans in Orlando are going to get. Of course, the Von Erichs will be there. Of course, Contra Unit with Jacob Fatu will be there. You know, Salina Renta is going to be in the house, and the Dynasty, and Injustice, and Jimmy Havoc, and, you know, so many of the top stars here in MLW. So, yeah, it's a great 1-2 punch for us as a company to go into Chicago with that big pay-per-view and follow it up the week later with the homecoming to Orlando.
We're going to wrap this up with Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Saint Laurent of Major League Wrestling, featured on beIN Sports, pay-per-view November 2nd, Orlando return November 9th. Just so many things happening with MLW. And they're on social media, especially with Court Bauer, been talking about a women's division for MLW. What can you tell us about that and the process of how you're going to acquire some of these talented wrestlers to MLW, certain ones that you're looking for or at?
You know, we've announced that we've signed Zeda Zhang to a multi-year agreement. Great women's wrestler, Chinese-American, had been on a few of our events about a year or so ago, and you know, right now we're in a position where, you know, there's a lot going on in the world of wrestling. There's a lot of competition right now, and so for MLW, you know, we have to focus on the wrestlers that want to make MLW their home, that are enthusiastic about what MLW is doing. You know, there's a lot of variety out there, and I think that's great, and there's wrestling for everybody, but MLW is the place for people that want to watch kick-ass wrestling, that want to see people get punched in the mouth, that aren't interested in wrestling being portrayed as a cartoon. And then you've got other options if that's what you're into. MLW is its very own specific thing. And I think Zeta fits in great there. And, you know, we're looking for more talent. When I was down in Mexico a couple weeks ago, I was talking to some of the women's wrestlers down there. And, you know, we're going to see how it goes. We've got a very crowded roster right now. And we also have a lot of divisions. We take our middleweight division very seriously. You know, it's essentially a co-main event on the pay-per-view November 2nd with Teddy Hart defending against Austin Aries and Jacob Fatu defending against LA Park. And if we were to ever have a women's champion, you know, if you're the champion of the world for your division, I want that to be a big deal. So I never want to half-ass this thing. I would rather take my time, find the right people, find the right moment, than to just do it for the sake of doing it. But I'm definitely very excited that women's wrestling is returning to MLW soon.
And with that, MSL, do you get just a ton of requests or a lot of people, even going back from the day, that have grown and are involved in pro wrestling, that are trying to reach out to you and just saying, hey, what about me, or doing this, doing that? How do you handle all that? Because I'm sure it's gotten a lot more now that you're with MLW.
Yeah, it's tough because I would say in an average week, I probably get 400 submissions in an average week. So you're talking 1,600 a month. I mean, you start to do the math. It's impossible to go through them all. You know, I have a couple of assistants that help me, and they'll kind of sort through some of the submissions and let me know, hey, this guy or this girl, we really need to give them a look. And, you know, things are full, but we're always looking. I mean, for me, the thing that excites me the most is just to go to events live. You know, it's hard to sit there. You can click through thousands of YouTube links a week. A lot of the talent that we've discovered, it's me just going in person to a show and really getting a feel for what somebody can do, what the vibe in the room is when they walk out, how can they command a crowd. You know, a lot of things that are difficult to pick up on a YouTube link of, you know, somebody shot the match on their old phone sideways, and yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I wish honestly I had more time to go travel and search for more talent. And, you know, but we've done a great job. Court, myself, the rest of the team. You know, we have found a lot of talent before anybody else, and that's the game we're in right now. Because there's been times where if we had been a day or two slower, there might have been another group knocking on the door. We got to be there first.
Well, very awesome insight, very good insight from Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Saint Laurent, MLW. Appreciate the time. Is there social media or anything you want to promote for MLW as well?
Yeah, just follow us on Twitter at MLW. We're on Instagram at Major League Wrestling. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at MSL. And I think the main thing is, if you've never seen MLW before, there's no excuse. Go to youtube.com/Major League Wrestling. Check out our TV show Fusion. It's 1 hour a week. It's the most exciting 1 hour of pro wrestling you're going to see. It's the easiest, most fun watch that there is in pro wrestling right now. You've got great storylines they're developing in this roster. And you know, we're not sitting there with a pencil telling people who to hate who. We don't have to manipulate things in that way. We've got a lot of young talent. There's a lot of testosterone and hormones and angst and fear and anger and ego and all these combustible elements when you stick a bunch of great talent in a locker room. And we just kind of, let's just see what happens, man. I think for so long, wrestling was so heavily manipulated. It doesn't need to be like that. Let the wrestlers figure out for themselves who they like, who they don't like, you know, who they want walking them into the ring, who they're heading to the hotel with after the show, and who they want to punch in the face, who they want to train with. You know, I think one of the keys to MLW is in a world of a lot of nonsense and maybe taking wrestling in a direction of just being another TV show or some hokey Jerry Springer TV show. We want to do the complete opposite of that. We know we have the best athletes in the world. We know we have the most interesting personalities in the world. Let them be themselves. Let them decide for themselves what they want to do, and may the best man win.
And that is great. And I got to add this. One of those personalities, Salina de Renta, what a tremendous job she's doing. A wrestler, but she doesn't need to wrestle anymore. She is just outstanding, leading combatants to the ring, and her work on the mic, it's just incredible. You had a nice find there in that talent, and we're looking forward to seeing MLW November 2nd on pay-per-view and November 9th in Orlando. And thank you much, Mr. Saint Laurent.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me.